I extend the warmest of welcomes to all of you. I now request Mrs. Jayalakshmi and Ms. Purti to recite the invocation.
Mataram Vande Mataram Sujalam Supalam Malayaj Sheetalam Sasya Shamalam Mataram Vande Mataram Shubhra Josnam Pulakitayaminim Pullakusumita Drumadala Shobhinim Suhasinim Sumadhura Bhashinim Sukhadam Varadam Mataram Vande Mataram Vande Mataram Vande Mataram.
Thank you. I now invite Dr. Jagannath Nayak to present a brief history of the genesis of the Professor TR lecture series and an introduction to Mr. Chetan K.
Distinguished chief guest of today's function, Mr. K. Chetan, founder, head of the department, and the guest of honor, Professor T. Ramchandran, president of today's function, Professor M.B. Sai Datta, our beloved gurus, my esteemed colleagues, guests, invitees, alumni, and my dear students. A very good morning to all of you. It's my proud privilege to welcome you all to this 25th lecture under Professor T. Ramchandran lecture series. At the outset, I would like to welcome our chief guest, Mr. K. Chetan, a proud alumnus of 1984 batch from our department, who, in spite of his busy schedule, was kind enough to accept our invitation to deliver the 25th lecture in Professor T. Ramchandran lecture series. This only shows his love and affection towards the department and his high regards towards Professor T. Ramchandran. On behalf of the Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering, on my own behalf, and on behalf of all of you who have gathered here, I extend a very warm welcome to Mr. K. Chetan. May I request Ms. Purti to offer a flower as a token of our respect. I also wish to extend my hearty welcome to my guru, the founder head of this department, Professor T. Ramchandran. Sir, we are honored and blessed by your presence. And may I request Ms. Akshata to hand over a flower. Thank you. Professor Sapan Bhattacharya, our beloved director, is a patron of our association and is a constant source of support to all our activities. And due to some prior commitments, he is unable to attend this program, and he has conveyed his best wishes to the success of this program. Professor M.B. Sai Datta, Dean Alumni Affairs and Industry Relations, is officiating today as the director in charge. He is a professor in Department of Chemical Engineering, and he was already introduced to you yesterday. As you have already witnessed yesterday, he is a well-wisher of our department and a strong admirer of Professor T. Ramchandran. He has kindly agreed to preside over this function, and I take this opportunity to welcome him on behalf of all of you gathered here. And I request Ms. Jayalakshmi to offer a flower to Professor M.B. Sai Datta. I also welcome all our former colleagues, my gurus, to this function, and all invitees, students, and guests. Let me now brief about the genesis of Professor T. Ramchandran lecture series. especially for the benefit of the students and the new faculty. Professor T. Ramchandran joined NITK, the then KREC, as professor and head of the department in the year 1965 and served until his superannuation in the year 1989. Towards the end of his tenure in this institute, he has also served as principal of then KREC for 2 years. He, along with his colleagues, has built this department brick by brick, and today our department is considered as one of the best departments in all fronts, may it be academics, research, student-faculty interaction, or interpersonal relations among colleagues. The credit for all this goes to Professor T. Ramchandran. He is instrumental in developing the infrastructure and a sound base for research and development in the department. He was honored by the Metallurgical Department of Banaras Hindu University with Distinguished Alumnus Award in the year 1973. During 1975-76, 1983-84, and in 1990, after his retirement, he was visiting scientist at Max Planck Institute of Ferrous Research at Düsseldorf, Germany, from where he had obtained his doctorate degree earlier. In appreciation of his immense contribution to the department at NITK, the department had organized a national seminar, MetMats 89, to coincide with his superannuation. His ex-colleagues and students have donated generously for the event. The idea of starting this lecture series was originated during that time. From the excess money of this event, along with the contribution from his well-wishers, a fund was established for the purpose. The fund is now managed by the Institute, and the interest earned by this fund is being utilized for meeting the expenses of Professor T. Ramchandran lecture series every year. When the fund position was not very good because of the bank interest rates came down and the expenses for this lecture series went up, it was Professor V. Ramchandran who helped us in strengthening the fund position by mobilizing the amount by contacting alumni of the department settled in USA. We are thankful to Professor V. Ramchandran for this. We are also thankful to Mr. Nagprakash Babu, a distinguished alumnus of our department, who donated $10,000 to sustain this lecture series. We also thank all the contributors to this lecture fund. Let me now introduce our chief guest, Mr. K. Chetan, who will be delivering the 25th lecture series in a short time. Mr. K. Chetan obtained his BE degree in metallurgical engineering from NITK, the then KREC, in the year 1984, and ME degree from IISc Bangalore in the year 1986. He has been awarded Six Sigma Black Belt from General Motors. He is lead auditor for ISO 9000 and ISO 14000. He started his professional career with BML Limited as R&D engineer in the year 1986. Later, he joined Larsen & Toubro and worked as senior executive quality and metallurgy during 1986 to 1995. In 1995, he joined Asia Pacific Delphi Automotive System, a division of General Motors, as Director Quality and served there for 10 years between 1995 and 2005. Currently, he is the Executive Vice President and Director Quality plus Excellence Champion at Bharat Forge Limited, Mundwa, Pune. He has a total experience of about 26 years in various fields like quality, manufacturing operations, engineering, plant maintenance, business excellence, manufacturing excellence, lean manufacturing, and Six Sigma. We are really proud to have a person with this caliber to deliver the 25th lecture series. And with this, I conclude and I welcome all of you once again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now invite Professor T. Ramchandran to address the gathering.
Professor Sai Datta, Mr. Chetan, Professor Jagannath Nayak, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to be here on the occasion of the Silver Jubilee of the lecture series, and I thank the organizers of this meeting for the opportunity given to me to be present here yet again. I've been doing this for the last 24 years, and this is my 25th visit, probably missing one or so. This time, I'm twice blessed to be present here because of the MIRMM, which I could also attend, as I organized as part of the Golden Jubilee celebrations of the department. I'm particularly happy today because of the presence of Doctors Krishnadas Nair and Natarajan, who were a great help at the beginning of the department. Dr. Nair was, of course, the first speaker of this series, and Dr. Natarajan also gave a lecture during the course of this series. I won't dwell on that aspect now because probably it is not appropriate, but the initial period of building up was helped by a large number of people who came only a very short time. And even during those short stays, they contributed mightily to the department in the initial stages. This occasion has also enabled me to meet a large number of old students, which was normally not the case. At this time, because of the conference, I could meet many of them. It is rare for a person to get an opportunity to be present at the Golden Jubilee celebrations of an enterprise of which one was the first member. I thank the organizers of MIRMM also for enabling me to do that. I'm particularly happy that these two occasions merged, and therefore I could take part in both of them. Last year, when Dr. Prabhu asked me to come to the lecture, I told him that would probably be the last time I came to Surathkal. He reacted immediately, saying this year's would be the 25th of the lecture series, and I should attend it. And that's why I'm here. I have enjoyed all my visits so far, and there would always be a temptation to visit again. But at my age, there's no saying what would happen the next day. Before signing off, I would like to wish the department all the best in the coming years. I wish all the students the very best in the coming examinations and great success in their careers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now invite Professor M.B. Sai Datta to deliver the presidential address.
Professor T. Ramachandran, Mr. Chetan, Executive Vice President, Bharat Forge Limited, Professor Jagannath Naik, Head of the Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering, invited guests, dignitaries, my faculty colleagues, student friends, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be part of this function of the 25th Professor T. Ramachandran Lecture Series lecture. And I think I give credit to the Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering for choosing an alumni to deliver that lecture. Of course, quite a few alumni have come and delivered this lecture in earlier years, but I think it is befitting that an alumni has come to deliver the 25th lecture in this series. There is a reason for saying this. you have only the first lecture series to be started in the name of a professor who served this institute has been Professor T. Ramachandran lecture series. The second one is there in the name of Professor M.G. Subbarao in the Chemical Engineering Department. But there have been many professors in this institute, but these two are remembered very fondly by all their erstwhile colleagues and students. I'm not saying the others are not fondly remembered, but they have commemorated their fondness by instituting a lecture series. And that shows a lot of character on the students whom they taught and about the professors themselves. I know the kind of camaraderie that existed in the departments of metallurgy, because when I say metallurgy, of course, today in the morning when I was speaking to Professor Prasad Rao, he was just mentioning that there is to be a firm called Canadian Metchem who were laying the pipeline from Kudremukh to Mangalore to transport the slurry. So then Professor Charula of Chemical is to tell him, it seems, that we are Indian Metchem, this metallurgy and chemical department, because both started together and there has been a lot of give and take in the sense, the collaboration between the departments. And what I find wonderful about metallurgy department is that the kind of camaraderie that existed then and which exists today between the faculty. I wouldn't be mistaken if I were to say that the head of the department would come to any faculty's room if he had some job, if he had something to discuss. The HOD would come to the faculty's room rather than asking the faculty to come and meet me. They would never say that. Yes? And the students could go and meet the faculty at any time and have discussions or meet the head of the department at any time too.
Thank you, sir. As a token of gratitude and appreciation, I now request Professor M.B. Sai Datta to present a small memento to Mr. Chetan K. Now, I request Dr. K.N. Prabhu to present a memento to Professor T. Ramachandran. I now request Dr. Jagannath Nayak to present Professor M.B. Sai Datta with a memento. Thank you, sir. As this auspicious occasion draws to a close, on behalf of the Department of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering, I thank our esteemed director, Professor Swapan Bhattacharya, who is the backbone of our institute and without whose support this ceremony would not have been possible. I thank Professor M.B. Sai Datta for presiding over the ceremony, Mr. Chetan K. for being the guest of honor, and Professor T. Ramachandran for gracing the occasion with his presence. With deep gratitude, I also thank all the alumni contributors to the Professor T.R. Lecture Series Fund, whose aid has been invaluable. I thank Mrs. Jayalakshmi and Ms. Purti for invocating the ceremony, and last but not the least, I also thank each and every person who has contributed directly or indirectly in making this ceremony the success that it has been. Thank you. Now, I request everyone to please stay back for 5 minutes, and as Mr. Chetan K. will be delivering the Silver Jubilee Lecture of the Professor T.R. Lecture Series.
Professor Sai Datta, Professor Jagannath Nayak, distinguished speakers from various institutions and organizations, and faculty members from Materials Engineering and Metallurgical Department, and students. It's indeed a great privilege for me to give a talk on the concept of zero defect and zero effect, which is nothing but a corollary of Make in India initiative, as Mr. Modi says. I'm really thankful to the entire faculty of Metallurgy and Materials Engineering Department for giving this opportunity to deliver this talk to today. I'm sure yesterday you must have had series of presentations on various technical topics, but for a change, I'm going to talk about the strategic side of Make in India in terms of what companies need to do to achieve success in that direction. So what I'm going to explain as part of the presentation is the methodology we have developed at Bharat Forged to make this initiative a success, and what are the various steps we followed, and what are the steps moving forward in terms of accomplishing what we want to do. As we are aware, our Prime Minister launched this initiative in the month of September 2014. The primary objective was to focus on international marketing for the products made in India and also make India as the base for global customers. Now, let's look at what is the current scenario. If you look at what's happening, there is an increase in manufacturing sector growth to 12 to 14%, and that is what is required to happen if we are to grow. There is an increase in the share of manufacturing in the country, which results in a GDP growth from 16 to 25% by 2022. That is the projection. And if you look at countries like China, that is the rate at which they are growing. There is a need to create 100 million additional jobs by 2022. And there is a need for creation of appropriate skill sets, especially in manufacturing sector, and that's going to be part of the growth. An increase in domestic value addition and technology in terms of growing in-house technology. We cannot be depending on borrowed technology or the collaborative technology. There is a pressing need to develop the technology in-house. Enhancing global competitiveness. So in terms of quality, in terms of technology, etc., is definitely the key driver of this. And with all this, we have to have sustainable growth so that we do not impact the environment, which is very important, as we know. What are the sectors identified for this particular initiative? There are totally 25 of them, starting with automobiles, automotive components, aviation, biotechnology, chemicals, and so on and so forth. The last thing is the health industry or the wellness industry. So practically every sector is covered here, as you can see. Now, why Make in India for automotive components? As of now, India is the 4th largest producer of steel in the world. The projection is that it is going to be the 2nd largest by the end of 2015, with a lot of private sector participation in steel manufacturing and capacity enhancements, etc. going on. So geographically, we are close to a lot of ASEAN countries, Japan, Korea, Europe, etc., so which could be potential markets for all the automotive components we make. And look at the sector policy. There is a lot of focus on R&D activity. If you see all the automotive biggies like GM, Chrysler, Mercedes, etc., they all have set up their engineering centers, R&D labs in India. The primary focus is to bring the high-intense technical activity to India. Automatic approval for 100% foreign equity investment in auto components in manufacturing facilities. So a lot of these policies are really helping us to boost the growth in this particular segment. Talking about oil and gas, we are the 4th largest consumer of crude oil and petroleum products in the world. And in terms of refining capacity, we have the 2nd largest capacity. You must be knowing about Reliance and a lot of other public sector companies which have put a lot of effort in generating capacity in this area. And the growth driver is new exploration licensing policy and the coal bed methane policy have been put in place to encourage investments. This is attracting a lot of investors. Oil imports constitute over 80% of India's total domestic oil consumption. So with all this, there is a pressing need to look at various sectors and see what we can do. Now, making an initiative in the defense product. The good news is that the government is encouraging a lot of private parties to get into this. All the big companies like Tata's, Mahindras, Larsen & Toubro have gone into this. We have also joined the race in this domain. And to be specific, the last couple of years, pumped in about 100 crores of investment to set up defense manufacturing, especially the basics related to the gun systems, and we have also set up a defense electronics division to cater to the electronic products requirement of Government of India as far as defense is concerned. Now, this is just a snapshot of what we are doing today in Bharat Forge. Of course, originally we were an automotive company. We are into automotive, we are into oil and gas, we are into marine engines, marine engine parts, construction and mining, wind power. We are into supply of parts for Indian Railways for locomotive application. The last 3 years we have stepped into aerospace and defense with a lot of intense activity going on in these areas. Now, just to talk about market position, we are the largest forging capacity in the world after combining the capacity we have in India as well as European countries. And we have the manufacturing facility which takes care of the rear axle trucks for commercial vehicles, which is in terms of capacity, there's #1 in India. In terms of engineering steels, we have the highest in terms of capacity. I'm talking about engineering steels, not the general kind of steels. And #1 Indian exporter of wheels for various vehicles, including commercial and non-commercial. These are some of the joint ventures we have with some of the global players in the respective domains. We have tie-up with Meritor, tie-up with Maxicon. We have set up a joint venture with Alstom for manufacture of power generation equipments in Gujarat. And we also have a tie-up with Carpenter for manufacturing specialty steels for various engineering applications. Service quality. So today it's not enough if you supply products on time. You have to be listening to the cries of the customer, the pains of the customer on a continuous basis, and you have to measure the pulse of the customer on a continuous basis, which I have tried to do through a process called voice of the customer. Then quality system, is the backbone of the entire organization, and we keep reinforcing that. The last is product reliability and safety. This is very important, as you know. So these pillars remain the same, but the initiatives are added every year. This is not a one-time list. So this was looking different 5 years back. Next year it's going to look different. But the core structure remains the same. Design influence at the head end of this, but minimum design influence. This is what we are trying to do. So we have already crossed the yellow blocks, and now we are transitioning to step number 3, which is nothing but moderate design influence. A lot is done on engineering upfront so that we don't have a process that produces defects. The last thing we want to do is reach the level of design for Six Sigma, which is what companies like General Electric are doing every day. The successful I am showing, we have one division called Heavy Forging Division, which makes large forgings as heavy as 40 to 50 tons for big engineering applications. So it's a very energy intensive operation. So we looked at the energy consumption pattern of all the furnaces. We picked up one particular furnace. It was above our norm. So that's the one we took up for energy conservation. So we broke it down into the individual elements. So this is basically the tree structure approach, which helps you to drill deep into what is contributing to such a high energy consumption. So we look at every element of this. So even if it is furnace oil, it's going to finally result in some CO2 emission. So everything is converted into CO2.
Episode of Make in India, New Deal for Defence, I'm Shireen Bhan. The 12,000 crore rupee Kalyani Group is the largest forging company in the world and has a presence ranging from automotive to renewable energy. But in the past 4 years, the Pune-based group has made inroads into the defence production sector. Interestingly, the plans of the company to scale up its presence in the arms and aerospace segment coincided with the launch of the Make in India campaign. So what is the Kalyani Group's strategy to be a globally recognized OEM in the defence sector? How will it handle complex design and fabrication challenges associated with complex weapon systems? And what made this world leader in forgings enter the defence production sector? Ritupan Abhiran sought those answers at the Pune-based facility of the Kalyani Group. It was the summer of 1999 and the icy heights of Kargil were on fire as the Indian Armed Forces launched Operation Vijay to fend off the Pakistani army. As the Indian Bofors guns pounded enemy positions, the top brass of the army realized that it may need more artillery shells for the job at hand.
Senior officials of the Ministry of Defence met Kalyani Group executives with an SOS. The officials wanted the company to make artillery shells for the Bofors gun. The Kalyani Group took this up as a challenge and worked 24/7 to make those shells for the Indian Armed Forces, and that marked the informal entry of the Kalyani Group into the defence sector.
The Pune Pune-based company has been supplying auto components, accessories of tanks and other weapon systems to the Indian Armed Forces for about 3 decades now. But it's only in the past 3 to 4 years that the group has made a focused intervention in the sector. A new holding company, Kalyani Strategic Systems, was set up to steer the group's entry into the sector with the objective to make 100% indigenized weapon systems. Specific verticals that have been identified include artillery systems, armored fighting vehicles, precision ammunition, military vehicles, defense electronics and homeland security.
This is a Bharat 52, a 155 mm 52 caliber gun which can fire up to a distance of 40 kilometers. This gun has about 3,000 components. Most of these components have been designed and developed by the Kalyani Group right here at the Mundwa-based facility.
From the drawing board to the factory floor, it took just 2 years for the howitzer to take shape. And the group's chairman, Baba Kalyani, says, contrary to popular perception, it was a walk in the park.
Building a carriage, a mobile carriage with its own power unit or engine, it was extremely easy. I mean, I'm just surprised how easy it was.
So why does a group which is an expert in making forgings decide to make an artillery gun? The decision was not influenced by commercial conditions but by the fact that India does not have the capability to produce an artillery gun with 100% domestic components.
India has to continuously import artillery guns. I mean, this was much before Prime Minister Modi's election, much before the Make in India initiative took place. It was just, as an Indian, I got tired of listening to this. I said, I got to do something. And that's how we really started. I said, okay, let's, get into this business and let's build a gun.
While Bharat 52 was developed in-house, the group has also successfully modified a heavy-duty 105mm artillery gun to a nimble ultralight howitzer christened Garud 105. The gun, which weighs less than 1,000 kilograms, can be mounted on a truck or even a light vehicle, giving it shoot and scoot capability. Engineers of the Kalyani Group developed the Garud 105 in just 8 months.
This is a new technology called soft recoil. We have developed everything here with the help of an American company.
Right.
And now it's going to go for firing trials.
To ensure that Kalyani Strategic Systems can leverage in-house talent and resources of sister companies like Bharat Forge, a new shed has been made in the Pune-based factory complex of the Kalyani Group. This way, designers, engineers, metallurgy experts of the group are just a beck and call away to give their input to the artillery gun development program.
This is a very substantial investment that we have made in producing artillery guns.
Right.
And today, we can almost produce, if push comes to shove, let's say there was a situation that the government or the military needed guns, we could almost make one every alternate day.
The group is now confident that it has the capacity to be an extremely competitive player in the artillery gun segment.
Now you take an artillery gun, it will be at least 30% lower cost than anything you import from anywhere.
Straight away.
Yeah. So there's nobody in the world that can beat India in defense equipment on cost.
Only time will tell if this confidence can translate to reality, but industry veteran Kalyani has clearly thought over the group's business strategy. While other corporate houses are comfortable investing in new areas like defense only after guaranteed orders, the Kalyani Group has taken the road less traveled.
There are two ways of looking at it. You look at major contracts, try and, negotiate a way through those contracts and then build up facilities and execute the contract.
Right.
We have taken a very different approach. We have said that these are areas where we can be very good because we can use our knowledge in these areas. So we have chosen artillery as one of the areas. We have chosen ammunition as another area. We have chosen air defense system as a third area. And we have chosen armored vehicles as a fourth area. All these 4 areas, we have some presence in bits and pieces.
Right.
So we are now trying to put all this together and say, can we make the whole system?
While artillery remains a key focus area, the Kalyani Group has gone ahead and inked joint ventures with Israeli companies like Rafael Advanced Defense Systems and Elbit Systems, as well as Swedish majors like Saab. The 51-49 joint venture with Rafael was signed this February and will develop missile technology and remote weapon systems. This facility will come up in Hyderabad.
we are now almost in the final stages of taking over land from the government of
Sorry, I don't want to take a lot of time. I just wanted to show some of the snapshots regarding defense products.
It's indirectly affecting the production cost.
No.
That means the product cost.
That was the wrong school of thought, earlier school of thought.
Uh,
Now, if quality improves, the cost of manufacturing comes down. That's the reality.
but when we go to the level of zero tolerance, that's the meaning.
Yeah,
of
that's how, you must have seen. You have to attack quality from design. It is not, you produce a defective part and start filtering. So the quality process has to be part of the design process. So that's what I showed you in one of the slides. What is the design influence on quality earlier versus where it should be? Ultimately, everybody should be at design for Six Sigma. So you never design a defect, whether it's a process design or a product design or whatever it is. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Some Japanese companies, maybe they are at that level.
How you can relate or compare between the difference between the
the
zero defect and the PPP?
It's defect per million or defect per trillion. That's what it is. Okay. Now the question is, are we having enough maturity to go to that level tomorrow? So what Government of India has done is formulated a policy that talks about zero defect, zero effect. Now, once you reach that zero defect, which is ppm level now, probably we can transition from parts per million to parts per trillion, billion or whatever it is.
Yes, Sitaram attending this conference. And one of the things that generally my friends point out is the lack of organization, which is the reason for our low productivity, effective productivity. How do you organize to?
So it's a two-sided process. So you have to, it should be a shared vision and shared mission. It cannot be the board of directors telling something and the rest of the guys following. So we try to involve all levels in this excellence process. That's why I said we have to design our excellence process ourselves. So where every level is part of the process, and even an operator goes and makes a presentation in front of the chairman, which never happens in any company. So he may be making a presentation in Marathi, but that's the recognition given to people. I didn't talk about rewards and recognition, which is very much required when you want to unleash the hidden potential. We are practicing all these things. One is
accountability built in the system. How do you enforce the accountability?
Okay, simple, we have defined KPIs, key performance indicators. There is a key performance indicator for the company, there is a key performance indicator for the department, there is a key performance indicator for the department head, it goes to line manager, machine operator. If he is supposed to OEE, overall equipment effectiveness, three things. What's your question?
It's energy value stream mapping.
Yeah. I think most of the companies follow value stream mapping. So value energy stream mapping is very similar to value stream mapping. So what you try to do, when you do value stream mapping, you look at least 6 or 7 variables, like changeover time, cycle time, number of people involved, then what is the scrap you are producing that, then how many people are involved in the process. There are 7 or 8 variables. So for energy mapping, we do a very similar exercise. What we do is instead of number of people, it will be number of connected machines, connected load, how many changeovers, how many stops and starts, okay, and at what percentage of time machine is running at full capacity versus half capacity. So there is no need to run coolant system in a grinding machine when the grinding process is not on. Okay, so same way when the furnace door is open, all the supporting systems need not work. So TRIZ, you're talking about TRIZ, right?
Yeah.
TRIZ in simple language is called innovative problem solving. Okay, in simple, basically, there are 5 levels of problem solving. What it says is there are 40 principles. Okay, you can find solution to any kind of problem if you look at those. I don't have a presentation, but I'll explain to you. Okay, simple example. It says, now we are all metallurgists. We understand case carburizing, nitriding, nitrocarburizing, induction hardening, etc. Now you go to TRIZ. It says localized property different from rest of the areas. Okay, the Russian engineer who developed this TRIZ, developed 40 principles. You look at any problem on earth, one of those solutions applied.